Good morning, everybody. A very big welcome to this morning's webinar on employability and building local partnerships between local authorities and the voluntary sector. We've got some really great examples today to share with you, and also an opportunity to ask questions of colleagues throughout. A little bit of housekeeping first. So I'm Anna Fowley, I'm the Chief Executive SCVO, and I'll be chairing the session today. We are recording this session and it will be available on our YouTube channel after the event. If you have questions, could you please put them in the Q&A function? Don't put them in the chat because we'll not notice. But you can use the chat function to chat and to make any points that you want to make. But if you have questions, please use the Q&A function. If you see questions coming up on the Q&A function that you like and you would like to uprate, there's a little button that you can click to do that, and that brings it to the top of the pile so that I'll be able to spot it and ask it of the people on our panel. So as I say, welcome. We've got a lot of people attending today. It's really good to see so many people from local authorities and from the voluntary sector. We've got a great spread across the country. So I'm really looking forward to what we're going to hear. Employability, as you know, is really important anyway. It's even more important as we emerge out of the pandemic and deal with the economic impact that that's had. And it's never been more important, really, that councils and the voluntary sector work together to really meet the needs of people in our communities that need to be helped to rejoin or join the labour market. So I'm going to introduce, first of all, my colleague Pamela Smith, who has been around this agenda from a local authority perspective for a long time and has a great track record of working with the voluntary sector throughout her career. She's currently working with the Improvement Service on Employability, and she's going to give us some opening remarks. So can invite Pamela to speak now.
Thank you, Anna, and good morning, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to be attending this session today. And like Anna, I'm really pleased with the level of interest, as it's an excellent opportunity for us to start focusing on the work we need to do to strengthen local partnerships. As Anna said, strong local partnerships have never been more important than they are now, and that was demonstrated during the whole response to the current pandemic. The advisory group and the advisory group on economic recovery and the social renewal board both recognised the importance of place and recognised the importance of strong partnerships as we seek to build back better. The No One Left Behind approach and the proposed transformation of the employability system in Scotland has the scope to make a positive and significant contribution to the communities and the individuals who have been most impacted upon by the economic fallout from COVID. But we also need to ensure that those who were already excluded, and we know we had the highest levels of inequality and the highest levels of in-work poverty, are not forgotten about and not left behind, and that they are equally enabled to move forward and move towards and into fair work. Getting back to pre-COVID levels and the situation is not the goal. That isn't the end result. As we all know on this webinar, it's about being better than that. And it's about taking the opportunity to look at how we include well-being and how we include a broader societal improvement as we start to recover and the restrictions start to ease. The challenges are huge and they're diverse, and we will only succeed in this if we have a strong, collaborative and inclusive set of partnerships at a national, regional and a local level. Local partnerships are vital in this process, and the third sector is a critical partner of any well-functioning local partnership. Today is an important opportunity for us to showcase some examples where local government and third sector have good, strong, connected local partnerships. However, we are mindful one size does not fit all, but we know there are key aspects to any effective and a well-functioning local partnership. And we'll hear about some of this today as we start the process of strengthening local partnerships. We want to be inclusive, we want to be transparent, and we want to be effective. And we're really keen to get some collective views today. And as Anna said, we'll encourage you to use the Q&A and the chat. And this is really just the start of a process. And I hope you are encouraged when you see the 3 examples that we want to share today. And I look forward to your questions later. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Pamela. I agree very much with what Pamela is saying there. We're looking at strengthening partnerships at a local level between the voluntary sector and councils, building on some of the really good stuff that happened over the last year, but also that was happening before. And I think you'll agree that the examples we're going to share with you today are really encouraging. Before we get into that, I'm going to just start with a quick poll. Can you let us know how you feel about your current partnership? So between the local authority and the voluntary sector in your area, are you confident, not sure, not confident? Let us know what you think. While you're doing that, Ruth and Laura from Renfrewshire are going to get ready and be ready to start with their presentation. So we can see that it's an even spread, really. Most people are not sure, hopefully be more sure by the end of this process, or at least how to improve that position. A good number feeling confident, about a third if you're feeling confident, and the smallest number not so confident. So that's a good start. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Ruth and Laura to tell us about the fabby stuff that's happening in Renfrewshire.
Thanks, Anna. I'll just get this to start. Morning, everyone, and Laura and I from Renfrewshire Council are going to give you a short overview of what Renfrewshire Council has done in terms of partnership working. And I'm not moving. Sorry, my screen isn't moving. Oh, now this didn't happen in the rehearsal. Nope, I've frozen, I'm afraid. I'm going to stop share and then try again. Sorry about that. No, sorry, it's just not moving. I'm going to try again. Right. We're working now. Sorry about that. So Laura and I are going to tell you a bit about the Renfrewshire approach. And we really changed what we did probably around about 2012-13, which is a time not unlike just now, where we were mid-recession. Our unemployment levels had reached an all-time high. And really what we wanted to do was to put everyone's attention on employability, so that we could make a difference, get more people back into work and support the local economy. And at the time for us, I think we always knew how important employability was, but we wanted to make it a much more prominent agenda across Renfrewshire in general. And the way that we do that is to make sure that everyone's in the same place and working to the same agenda. And really what we wanted to do was to make sure that we could improve services, have greater alignment of provision, know where our gaps were and what else we had to do, but also to improve the take-up of services, and to make sure that all of the local partners, whether you were a delivery partner for employability or whether you were a partner who worked with some of the client groups that we might want for employability, that they were informed of what was available in the area. So the first thing that we did was we decided that we would hold an annual employability conference or event, and that became biannual actually within a couple of years because there was so much to talk about. And what we wanted to do really was to bring everybody together across all of the different organisations in the third sector, and to give an opportunity at least once a year where we kind of had a big staff development event where we talked about the big issues, where we sat in round tables so that we could mix with different organisations and different perspectives, and really get something out of employability where we had much better relationships and we were really beginning to plan for a joint agenda. Now, I must admit that the council put a bit of money behind this to make sure that everyone could attend at first, but please don't let that put you off, because I think over the last year or two, we've really seen what we can do with social media, with Zoom, with Teams, to do online events. But we did put quite a bit into this, and all of the partners contributed as well. And over the years, it really became much more from being information and networking to being an influencing event where we would look at big agendas and actually write local plans for them. So for example, in 2015, some of the big agendas for us at the time were tackling inequalities. The Poverty Commission had reported. We were looking at what we could do with current developments across Renfrewshire. We had a big city deal proposal. We were bidding for Paisley 2021. DYW had just come into play, and we took the opportunity where everyone in the around could get together, talk about these things, and find out how to get more involved and to influence. And the key thing within the events was that we would feedback. So we would feedback in terms of groups and find out what different perspectives were, what additional resources we might need, and what some of the key issues and agendas were. And we would provide a feedback document then from everybody as well, so that every year we had something that we could look back on in terms of action planning for the future. This is another example. This was one of our half-day sessions, which I think was from 2018. And you'll see at the bottom there, what we tended to do was have inputs, group discussions at your table, and then we would also have group workshops. And at that point in time, we were looking particularly at No One Left Behind and starting to form a Renfrewshire action plan around what was required in the area, who was left behind, who was not engaging with the service, what kind of services were there. And so that was the start of a process of action planning that didn't just affect a No One Left Behind plan, but also influenced our approach to inclusive growth. And the other thing we decided to do was to have employability awards every year. And again, this was really about saying, let's celebrate the achievements of a lot of the clients that we have and a lot of the delivery offers of the service agencies. So again, it was just about being able to have something very positive to say that raised the profile of what we did and really brought to life what the work of all the different partners was and what the journey was of a lot of the people that we supported. And we had, I think it was about 9 award categories. You get 3 finalists, and all agencies locally were invited to nominate people that they had supported. I think for that event, we could take probably about 250 people, and it was just such a positive night, giving lots of information about the types of support that different organisations did. We had a short video for each one in true award style, and a winner at the end type thing for each category. And just a really positive, upbeat event. And I think one of the key messages from our side is about bringing people together and making sure that everyone is aware of what everyone else is doing and actually join together to celebrate what we do. Laura's going to touch now on some of the follow-up work from the conferences around No One Left Behind.
So Renfrewshire Local Employability Partnership is our strategic partnership responsible for the delivery of No One Left Behind, to ensure that the resources that we get for No One Left Behind target where the need exists most. We have identified the key priority groups, and we have a number of work streams and action plans which all partners contribute to make sure that we can actually deliver the support to these priority thematic groups. All of the partners represented on the LEP are also signed up to deliver the Young Persons Guarantee in Renfrewshire. So to make this actually happen across our communities, we also have an operational partnership, which includes all employability delivery partners. In Renfrewshire, we have around 20 organisations who all deliver employability support within our communities. So that includes local and national third sector organisations and public sector providers. So we all promote provision, seek referrals to reduce duplication and improve outcomes. We meet on a regular basis, and it's quite an informal opportunity to network, but it's really, really effective in making sure that we can actually join up the provision that we have in Renfrewshire. And again, all of those partners are signed up to assist us to make sure that we can deliver the Young Persons Guarantee and make sure that there is an offer for all our young people across Renfrewshire. These partnerships have been developed over a long period of time. We have started having these conferences, as Ruth has explained, quite some time ago. So we have been developing these partnerships over that long period of time. So they do take a significant amount of time, a significant amount of effort, and a real desire from everybody to make it work. But I think what we then get is real impact for the people that we support within our communities across Renfrewshire. So I'm delighted and really proud of the strong partnership that we have with the voluntary sector and with the public sector within Renfrewshire, and it does really make a difference within our communities. So I'm now going to share the contact details for Ruth and myself, and we would be more than happy for any further contact from anyone today. And I'd just like to say on behalf of myself and Ruth, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much to both of you. That was really fascinating, and it's a bit of a thing, isn't it, that relationships take work. It doesn't matter what part of your life it's in, whether it's in your work or in your personal life, but you can really see the difference that that's made. And we've had a question in from Bob Clark, who's saying, can this be shared afterwards? So yes, all of this session is being recorded, and all of the presentations and the recording will be on our website after the event. The spirit of this is to learn and to share the learning, and I'm sure all of us will learn have learned from Ruth and Laura, and will learn more now as we move into our next partnership. So thank you very much to both of you. We'll come back to you at the question and answer session. And we're now going to hear from Sunny Dundee, and it'll be John Davidson and Jack Rigby who are going to speak to us now. So John and Jack, are you ready?
Yep, certainly are. Good morning, thank you, Anna. Good morning, everyone. Excuse me a second while I get the PowerPoint presentation up. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Dundee's approach to aligning and pooling resources with the third sector to deliver our local employability services. First and foremost, just with a bit of background information, in terms of in Dundee, we make reference to our local employability partnership as the Discover Work Partnership. That's our partnership's branding. And we have an executive group that's responsible for our strategy development, co-commissioning, co-designing of services, governance, performance monitoring, and reporting to our LEP. And what provided here is a table of membership. And as you can see, the third sector interface is one of our members. This is a very busy slide, but it's just to demonstrate that our executive group is part of the wider CPP reporting, And when we're co-designing and co-commissioning services, we have a customer group, employer group, and a provider group that actually influences that. In Dundee, we make reference to all employability services as the full wide Discover Work service. So no matter whether that's Employability Fund, Fair Start Scotland, our local healthcare academy, NTSF, we make reference to the Discover Work service, and we brand it as such for employers and for clients. This includes our local employability pathway, which is our ESF funded provision. And this is the bit that I'm going to talk about in detail because this is where we work with the third sector to pool resources. So in terms of our challenge fund framework, we work with a local interface to describe our aims and objectives, outline the target groups we wanted to support. We wanted to actually have a cost-effective delivery model that pooled resources, and we wanted to declutter the employability landscape. With working with our third sector interface, the key learning and key findings that we took from it is that we had to have clear governance arrangements in place. Sorry, excuse me a second. We wanted to create a clear level playing field between council and third sector services. So essentially asking the third sector and the council to both provide match funding. And we wanted to move away from payment by results as well. So another busy slide, but this is essentially the rainbow, as I put it, of funding in our challenge fund framework to fund our employability pathway. Our employability pathway includes a range of services, as you can see here, and it includes Enable Scotland and a range of others who actually formed a third sector consortium to support these target groups in terms of people with mental health conditions, physical health conditions, and disabilities. So what I'm hoping is that this demonstrates that we had VPRS funding, charity and third sector funding, council funding, NOLB, and ESF funding, all formed as part of our challenge fund framework, which totaled £1.8 million to fund all of these services. And since the introduction of PES funding and the Young Person Guarantee funding, we've actually expanded that challenge framework up to £3.2 million. And I'm going to move over to Jack now because Jack's going to demonstrate how all of these third sector organisations work with our partnership to provide a coordinated offer to these target groups. So it's a bit rushed through, Jack, but I can pass on to you now.
Perfect, thanks very much, John. So I'll just get my slides up. Just bear with me. There we go. So yeah, so just as John is explaining, Enable Works, which is part of Enable Scotland, so we lead a consortium of third sector organisations in Dundee, which feed into the pathway, which is all part of Discover Work in Dundee. And realistically, when it came to setting up the partnership, when it came to setting up the consortium that delivers lots 1 and 2 with regards to supporting individuals with mental health, physical health, or disabilities in Dundee, it was all about building the partnership in the right way. And obviously working with a range of different third sector organisations, we have these abilities to pool experience and expertise. You know, I quite often joke and say there's always agendas and there's always egos at play in any organisation, but at least with the third sector, in terms of the values-driven aspect, we're happy to share and we're happy to play with others. So being able to bring in expertise and experience from a range of different partners means that we're able to pool that to have a bigger impact with the people that we're supporting. We can obviously provide a louder voice for supported individuals, you know, the strength in numbers when it comes to working in partnership. We also bring quite a high level of agility and optimization to the work. You know, the third sector is known for being a bit more agile because we operate in a slicker, more streamlined way, just because of the nature of funding streams and because of the way businesses are set up. It allows for open communication because there's more people around the table. There's more people to talk about problems and talk about suggestions and talk about opportunities to develop the services. And ultimately, it creates a values-driven approach, which is focused on quality of service and support. But the big challenge is decluttering the landscape. So as you would have seen from John's slides there, the consortium that Enable Scotland kind of set up and led involved 7 separate third sector organisations listed here: Project Scotland, Enterprise Mentoring, Access to Industry, One Parent Family Scotland, Bernardus Works, Deep Limited, and Enable Scotland ourselves. All bringing different expertise to the table, different skills to the table. But ultimately, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to telling people about the service, when it comes to getting clients on board and getting employers to buy into the service, we needed to declutter that. And the first step towards that was obviously the discover work aspect that John talked about. Having a singular brand, a singular entity that we can talk about obviously goes a long way. But in terms of the partnership, in terms of what the consortium and our third sector partners agreed to, was create a singular entity. So all those 7 organisations became one brand called All in Dundee. So all the third sector organisations, we forgoed our own logos, we forgoed our own slogans to join into one entity to make the most impact and to obviously have a clearer and more concise presentation in Dundee. And the success comes through partnership. So with Enable Works in particular, we're big fans of consortia. You know, we operate in consortia, not in supply chain. The benefit of that is because we are working together, we're working in an open way. We focus on individual client journeys, not performance management. We focus on qualitative support and review, not a drive to get numbers. We focus on proactive adaptation and changing the ways of working to support the clients, not avoiding the risk of change because it's what we committed to 2 years ago. We're committed to sharing ideas and inspiration, and not dictating standardization. It is not our way as the lead partner in the consortium. We are here as a consortium and a partnership to share best practice. And the successes in that have come in any way imaginable. We've had improvement in engagement, you know, from having the ability to go into any referral route, whether that be the Job Centre, Skills Development Scotland, or any external organisation, being able to say that we are all in Dundee, part of Discover Work, it makes the conversation much, much slicker. That hasn't obviously affected in terms of engagement because the clients that have come on board have stuck with the service. Our dropout rate or our exit rate on the services has been minimal. And if we compare that to some of the other big national contracts, it's like night and day. The improvement in outcomes is maybe not been in number because we've been working through COVID-19, but it's definitely been an improvement in quality and sustainability. The jobs and the outcomes and the progressions we're sourcing for clients are sustainable. They're for the long term. And in the principles of what we're all here to do, they're helping people for forever. It's not just a numbers game to get a job for now. And the successes through that has allowed us to have active learning and review. We're able to review it in an open and honest way, as a partnership, as in a collaborative way, allowing us to put in place continuous improvement and changing things and adapting things as they come. And ultimately, the real success has been expansion of service and expansion of support. So Enable Works, we have also successfully worked with Dundee City Council to lead the parental employment support, the PES service in Dundee, working with existing partners in the pathway, including Dundee City Council as a partner as well. So it does show that the partnership and the collaboration is paying off, and it's having the best impact on people's lives. And 3 top tips for good partnership. I love a management tool, 3 C's: clarity, communication, and commitment. Clarity, honesty, transparency, being open and honest with one another. You know, we're all here for the same reason. We're all here for the greater good. The communication has to be there. There has to be upwards and downwards cascading of information. And just like Laura said previously, commitment. It's difficult. It's not always easy. It needs commitment. It needs time. It needs focus to grow and nurture a partnership. And commitment is what's required. That's it. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much, both of you. That's absolutely fascinating. We have got a question. I was going to keep questions till the end, but I think this is very particular to what you were saying. So I think I'll break all the rules and get around for it later, and take this question now. And I do, on a very shallow basis, I miss Dundee, and I love the fact that everything is called Discover something. Discovery is just such a great emblem, though, isn't it? And you can use it in any context. And Jack, you totally had me and John when you said get away from payment by results. If we could do anything, that would be one thing that would make me very, very happy, lady. So this question is from Yvonne Shaw. She's saying, I love this approach. Does it conflict with funder requirements? So you mentioned, John, a whole range of people. There's council funding, but you also mentioned charitable funding, which I presume was maybe trusts and foundations. I suspect there was there's a European flag in there. There's some European money. You mentioned NTSF. Good luck with that one. So is there anything you'd like to tell us about how you kind of corral all those interests?
Essentially, myself and my colleague Alana Campbell, who some people may know, take the burden of that on behalf of the partnership. So Alana and I are dedicated resources to look at all of the funding requirements that sits behind all of that rainbow of colours that I was showing. So we actually take the onus to make sure that we do that. We cover all of the performance monitoring and reporting and compliance and so on and so forth. But what is terrific about the approach that Enable took was we take on that burden, but the other challenge that we had and we wanted to get away from was awarding many amounts of money to lots of different organisations. We wanted to benefit from the economies of scale. So by Jack and Enable taking that consortium approach, essentially what Jack does for us is herd the cats, to be quite honest with you. So we deal with all the burden of the money and the reporting and compliance, but Jack and Enable herd all the cats and get everybody steering in one direction. So we always get the best of both worlds. But Jack, I don't know if there's anything you would add to that.
No, I think that's it. I think it is, as I was playing to strengths as well, you know, exactly what John's saying there, the strength that Dundee City Council's bring in with regards to that oversight and that, especially with the funding and bringing that together. I don't know if I've got the short end of the stick in terms of herding cats, but actually it's just a case of it separates the idea of the funding and the service. And it means that when we're delivering the service, when we're focusing on clients and their journey, that's what the delivery partners are worrying about. That's what we're focusing on. We're not worried about ticking a box to get paid. We're not worried about submitting a form in order to keep ourselves safe. We're focusing entirely on the service, on the quality, and it's a match made in heaven, because if you focus on the quality.
And Jack, just to come back as well on that, because one thing I mentioned in my PowerPoint presentation, but just very briefly, is that the third sector brought 15% of the match funding as well. You know, so as a partnership, we agreed to move away from payment by results, but equally, a combination of that was third sector sourced funding that the partnership couldn't, and brought that to the table, whether it's reserves, grant, trust funding, and all the rest. So we got that added value, and then all of a sudden it feels a little bit more like a partnership because everybody's putting a wee bit of money in, and then for some reason we match it all with the ESF.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll better, there's questions popping in now, but we'll get to the next presentation first, get back on track. So thank you very much, both of you. really appreciate that, and fascinating stuff, as was the first one. So now we're going to hear from Fife, from Pegs, and from Adam. So you take it away, guys.
Hi guys, are you able to hear me first and foremost? Because I had quite a problem with my my microphone earlier on. I'm hoping that's working.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. First and foremost, it's great to hear from Ruth and Laura and from Jack and John about what they're doing. And actually, some of the stuff that comes through in each of their presentations rings a bell with me, definitely, and I would imagine Pegs as well when we go through it. So it's nice to see that some of the things that we're quite proud of and some of the stuff that we've put together in Fife is actually, you know, you can see in other areas. So it's obvious that these are the sort of things that it should be done, and we are actually doing something right. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time in going through the details of what we do specifically. I'm going to kind of take you over the broad strokes of why we think the partnership working is important. First and foremost, Opportunities Fife Partnership, like John was talking about, his branding is the local employability partnership in Fife. Our partners are on the board there, and it's a hugely mature partnership, but incredibly important that people come to the table and offer support and chip in, you know, the expertise that they have. And I think our partnerships got richer in the last few years from the support that we've had from Fife's Health and Social Care Partnership and NHS Fife. And it's linking that idea of health and employability has been something that we've been really strong with. I'm going to go back as well to about 2013, similar to what Ruth was saying earlier, because that's when the Opportunities Fife partnership was kind of constituted, and it came out of a review by Professor Alan McGregor, who was looking at the way we worked strategically around about employability in Fife. And he made some serious critiques of some of the work that was going on, but he also was quite complimentary about the essence of what we had as a starting point. And one of the things that he did was to identify some key challenges, particularly around about employability in Fife. So health and disabilities, youth employment, and supporting growth in key industry sectors were particular things that you raised that we had to look at. But actually, community engagement was something that we wanted to concentrate on. And the reason for that is we felt that community engagement and better community engagement could address some of the challenges we faced in those other three areas. Particularly, developing the capacity of our third sector partners was one of the things that he highlighted. And the reason behind that was we had quite a rich and varied third sector in Fife, but it wasn't quite pulling in the same direction, and it certainly wasn't coordinated in order to get the best out of the expertise that they had. And one of the other things that came out later was about our need to support the most deprived areas, and particularly Mid-Fife, which I'm not going to go into today, but Mid-Fife, for anyone that doesn't know, is a mythical entity that happens in a part of Fife that is not on any map. But we'll leave that for future. One of the things that we looked at doing was developing a partnership approach, was putting a manager in place, and that's kind of where my post came from. There was a real conversation around about the fact that in the past the council had made policy for the council's benefit in terms of delivery of employability, and Alan McGregor kind of put out there that it would be better if the partnership made the policy and the council were just one arm of delivery. And my post came out of that. So I came in from a third sector training background, so I wasn't a council employee. And actually, although I am employed by Fife Council, I could have been employed by any of the partners to do the role that I do. So what we try and do is look at the wider context beyond just council delivery, and similar to the stuff that John was saying around about how do we pull resources from DWP, SDS, from the college, from the Health and Social Care Partnership, and use that with various funding sources to make a bigger pot, essentially, in order to support longer term, more targeted interventions. We've done that in a number of ways, and I think we have a strategy. And again, I have an incredibly busy slide that outlines the strategy that I didn't want to inflict on you today. But essentially, what we're looking at is 5 outcomes around about the challenges that we faced, and looking for ways that we can change the type of delivery that we have. We made some really difficult decisions in terms of delivery because, again, we moved to a challenge fund for our European programme, and we've replicated that again with No One Left Behind just recently. But essentially, one of the things that we did was we didn't ring fence any activity for our in-house council team. We asked them to bid for activity as the same way as we did with third sector and private activity. And what happened was we've got a richer blend of organisations delivering activity on our behalf. Like the guys have mentioned on Dundee, one of the providers, and Pegs will probably pick up on this a little bit later, but we put together, or we helped to facilitate, a consortium of third sector providers who currently deliver our largest proportion of the pathway as well, which is a huge success for us considering the small amounts of activity that they've been able to do before. I'm going to hand over to Pegs in a minute to talk about her role, because I think that's the next huge thing that we required, and that was a dedicated resource within employability, or in the third sector around employability. But I like this. These cartoons are something that Pegs has used in the past, and I think this represents her and I quite well, because we're both in the same arena and we're both trying to do a similar thing, but we are coming at it from particularly different perspectives. Which is hopefully why we work together well on this. But Pegs, I'll hand over to you to talk about you, and I'll keep sharing the slides. I'll just push them on when you ask me to.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, so hi everybody. My name's Pegs Bailey, and my post was created very shortly before Adam's in 2013, and as a dedicated resource within the third sector interface. And I think this is really important. As Adam was saying, there was an important separation of policy in from delivery in Fife Council, so that we weren't asking turkeys to vote for Christmas effectively. It's quite important that my role in the third sector interface is unbiased, so I'm not speaking on behalf of the sector, but actually really my organisation is, you know, I'm going to have to represent them overall. So that's really important. The second thing that I did when I first got into post was a large amount of mapping and looking at what was already happening and gathering an evidence base for what needs to change. And Adam, could you, is that okay? I don't mean to be rude, but I'm getting some back. I hope it's not me. I think that microphone's being weird again. Oh.
2 secs.
Can't mute and stop thinking. Sorry. This microphone's being very glitchy at the moment. So yeah, so that was quite important, and the solutions that we put in place, which echo what's happened elsewhere, were based on that research. So we set up a monthly e-bulletin to inform people about policy developments and new services to improve communication, and a quarterly forum which was cross-sectoral, so third sector and public and private sectors, to help improve information flow and partnership working. Very much built on an ethos of togetherness. And a big priority for the first 2 years was the creation of the third sector employability and training consortium, which I will try and put the web page for them in the chat. And it's very similar to what's happened in Dundee. It happened a little bit earlier, so it's kind of a bit more established, but I think it's a really fantastic thing to see that happening in other areas as well, because I think it is absolutely through that partnership that we get change, and that required an investment of resource from Fife Council to help make that happen, and me too. So if we go on to the next slide. So this is a sort of summary of some of the different things we did. So I'm going to canter through it a bit, but if we start in the green quarter down at the bottom where we talk about the forum, I've mentioned some of the points. We also now, like Renfrew Show, we have an annual very large scale event which brings everybody together, DWP, the college, Skills Development Scotland, lots of networking and looking at key themes and issues and informing what goes on forward. So that's been fantastic. We also set up a little third sector only conversation because we were also asked to do that by our third sector partners. They wanted a private space to raise issues. In terms of the pathway, Adam's talked about this big shift in the balance of delivery as a result of his post, my post, and this open challenge fund approach to commissioning services, which I think has been fantastic. And the other two things I want to pick up on the pathway, so that little bit of research I did when I first started in post, we've now run that 3 times. So we produce a almost biannual Working for Fife report. It captures everything that's happening in the sector. And this is really important because, for example, there were 27 in 2018, there were 27 third sector organisations delivering nearly 41 projects. And so while there is always a desire to declutter, I think there's also an importance to recognise that it is a vibrant and diverse landscape and things will appear. And actually the investment in joining the dots is as important as this idea of kind of decluttering, because sometimes those little projects might be just the thing for somebody. So again, I'll put the link to the Working for Fife 2018, but we're just about to do the 2021 report right now. I think the other thing I want to say about the consortium is it was really important that there was some push at the time that Fife Voluntary Action should become the lead partner for the consortium, and we very strongly said no, because as the third sector interface, we need to remain unbiased. And when you think about the fact that there's 27 third sector organisations delivering employability in Fife, then you can see that we need to have a bigger perspective than just that of the consortium. We also pulled together a directory of services, again, an attempt to try and make this easier for people to navigate. And that's not just the third sector, but the full pathway in Fife. If coming up to the blue corner, just a really small but very important thing we do is we do a governance check on all the third sector providers that get funding through the Opportunities 5 partnership on behalf of the partnership. And that is really important because, as everybody knows, there are good third sector organisations out there doing really good stuff, but maybe not paying attention to making sure they've got the governance structures in place to keep them right and keep them straight. And that's absolutely central to having a sustainable third sector. And finally, just coming on to the strategic part of my role. So I sit on the various Opportunities 5 partnership boards and delivery groups. I chair one of them. There are two really important things that we do strategically. One is have open dialogue about cash flow, and whether that's European funding cash flow or sorting out service level agreements and making sure that they're fair and equitable. So supporting those kind of conversations, which can be quite robust. And also we've ended up leading on a number of policy initiatives. So we led on a whole piece of work called Delivering Differently, looking at mental health and employability in the area. And then more latterly, we coordinated on behalf of the local authority and in partnership with them and others, the consultation around No One Left Behind, and created a kind of collaborative approach to doing that in terms of informing the commissioning framework, which was done as an open process as well. So that's it from me. Oh no, hang on, last slide, top tips, I forgot. So first top tip, separate policy and delivery, be honest and open about conflicts of interest. Because I suppose our quote was build it and they will come. And if you think, if we can get the strategic framework right, then all sorts of things can happen. But if you don't get that strategic framework right, you're always going to be working against the tide. Having that dedicated independent third sector resource to give that different perspective and be part of this ongoing dialogue and challenge. And I think everybody's mentioned communication. It's absolutely critical to successful partnership working. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you for that. That was really fascinating. Again, it's really interesting. There's common threads, but also differences, which I think is what's so fascinating about this work, and that's a great thing. So I'm going to come to question and answers now. We have one question which has had quite a few votes in the Q&A. I've also got some questions that came in advance, but if I think probably if everyone wants to come back on the screen, let's see if that works. That was speaking. And the question, thanks guys. The question that we've got from Hannah, I'm wondering if that's one for Pamela actually to begin with, about measuring success. How do you measure success? So you will have your own, how you do it in your own partnerships. Interested to hear about that. And also there might be a national perspective from you, Pamela, on how that might work in a No One Left Behind setting in the future. Okay,
so I suppose most people in the call will be familiar with the shared measurement framework work stream of No One Left Behind, and that was aimed at moving away from outcome-based funding and actually measuring the things that are important, like the reach of the service, the engagement of the service users, and then looking at the more qualitative outcomes and impact. So I think we still want to look at outcomes and we still want to look at impact, but we don't want quick fixes and tick boxes. So I think we, in the first phase of No One Left Behind, have been basically looking at the data that we're collecting firstly, and looking at what that's telling us around who's engaged, who's not engaged, and what difference has it made to them. So I think the key thing we want to look at measuring is the difference that the interventions make. And a lot of that is qualitative. The end result is about moving people into good, fair, sustainable work, because it is an employability service. But we're all aware, the kind of client group that we're working with, there will be loads of intermediate outcomes for that individual that isn't just a job. And paying on jobs that aren't good quality, sustainable jobs aren't really the outcomes or the impacts that we're looking for either. So hopefully through the collaboration within the shared measurement framework, through having a broad church of providers involved and funders involved, we can agree on how we measure things moving forward. And it is a shift in what we value as well. And also we need politicians to be braver and to be less risk averse, because a lot of the time it's about giving numbers and giving numbers that can be part of announcements. I think I'm okay to say this because I don't work for the council or the government at the minute, but that is really part of the challenge, because we have to change what we mean about what we're accountable for. And it isn't just about X amount of money was spent and Y number of people are now in a job. And we don't actually look at the difference made, because that, for a lot of the clients, it is around their mental health and well-being. You know, it is about stabilizing some of the chaos in their life. And for some of them, you know, it is a 4, 5, 6 year journey. And I think within the shared measurement framework, there is an opportunity for all partners to be directing that and to be agreeing on what we value, and then we measure what we value, as opposed to the old payment for results kind of model that we all want to move away from. So I don't know if that's helpful. That's a bit of my own view on it, and hopefully a view of where we're going as a kind of national partnership.
Yes, sorry, I'm pressing away on my unmute and it's not making any difference. So yeah, thank you, Pamela. It does make absolute sense to me. Does anyone want to chip in from your own experiences in a partnership? Or we move on to another question. Oh, Ruth.
I think it's just maybe about the difference that you can make when you do it differently. I think one of the examples Laura used there, I mean, we've in launching YP Guarantee for the first time, I think in Renfrewshire, we've got a portal with all the opportunities that every partner can contribute to. That's a first for us. You know, it used to be that someone else managed it, but now we're in a process. We're not fully there yet, but because it's been quite a quick process. But I think to have different solutions through partnership and to get to the stage where we say, actually, that's new for us, that's better than we've ever had. So small successes can be great, because that's much better information to those out there who are looking for the opportunities. So I think take success in small bites as well, because it really can make a difference.
John, were you wanting to say something? No, it was the same thing, wasn't it? Okay, we've had quite a few questions, both coming in advance and also in the chats that all relate to different particular communities of interest. So we had a question in advance about what do we do in terms of what are we doing in terms of in ethnic minority communities, how are we reaching out to them particularly, are we measuring that? We've also had some about people with learning disabilities, for example. So there's a whole kind of range there. Is there anyone who would like to talk about that, making sure we really hit those people that, as Pamela mentioned at the beginning, that we're already furthest from the labour market, and how are we capturing the information to make sure we're doing well on that? Pegs, do you want to start off on that one? Thanks, and Jack, I'll come to you because you're smiling.
I was just gonna say, I keep putting my hand up. So I came in on that one because actually we've just done a big piece of work on that through our No One Left Behind conversations, because and we haven't got the right balance. I think it's you know, we'll all put our hands up and say in our local area we don't have the right balance. What we did was in terms of trying to get that voice to help inform the commissioning for No One Left Behind, we actually actively worked with organisations, third sector organisations who had direct links with those communities, or public sector partners, say with working with people who have a history of offending, to get their views on what needed to be different, or what were the barriers from their perspective that needed to change. What we got from that was actually this really strong acknowledgement that we need to have a very universally accessible core provision. but that sometimes people might need specialist help to be able to engage in that or to stay engaged with that. And that we need to make sure we've got this balance. So we're not creating lots of tiny little projects, one, you know, especially for this group, or one especially for this group, but actually that we're upskilling our main provision to be stigma aware, and understand some of their biases and some of the ways that maybe their provision isn't as accessible as they might think it is or might want it to be. And then also there's a big piece of work to work with employers. So that was the intention. We've just completed our commissioning process. We haven't got where we wanted to be. There's still a journey to go with some of the providers to get the full kind of a better balance of provision. But that was a key message that we had. Discrimination was huge, and something that we underestimate.
So Jack, do you want to quickly come in on that? I'm really conscious of time. So
yeah, I think obviously Enable Scotland are one of Scotland's largest charities supporting individuals with learning disabilities. So it just makes sense that I talk here. But essentially, yeah, you know, with Enable, that has been our bread and butter. That has been our target client group for over 65 years now. So we've got ways and means of engaging in these communities. But similar to what Pegs was saying there, it's about being able to identify and support people with that particular barrier, that from that particular community, but also not segregating them in the sense of the service. So again, you know, referring back to the slides, one of the things that we developed with a consortium in Dundee was that there is a pool of expertise, and to use Peg's word, it's upskilling. So you know, we are a training provider for supported employment, so we can deliver the level 7 PDA in supported employment, which is specifically designed to support individuals with learning disabilities or really complex barriers. And we've been delivering that to our partners in Dundee. We've been offering that out to upskill the marketplace, essentially to have that expertise everywhere, so that there is more options for support for individuals with disabilities, learning disabilities, more complex barriers. But ultimately, it's just about adapting, and realistically for learning disabilities in particular, early intervention is the key. You know, we need to be engaging with the schools, we need to be working alongside them when they're in education to talk about that transitional activity, that vocational activity, then to look at the world of work beyond that.
okay, thank you very much. It's fascinating. I've got a sense that this probably could go on for another hour, and we're not allowed. So we have quite a few other questions, but I think what I'll do, there's a couple in particular that I think, John, you could do justice to, but I think we'll endeavour to answer those to participants kind of behind the scenes, if that's okay, if we can come back to people who participated. I'm particularly interested in the one about community planning partnerships, and you did refer to that, John, in your slides. But I suspect that we'd be here for another half an hour if we started talking about that just now. So we'll try and do that offline, as it were. Pamela, can I invite you to give us your final reflections on what you've heard, and then I'll just do the thank yous at the end.
Yep, thank you, Anna. So we've heard today 3 examples out of potentially 32 local partnerships, and within the 3 we have saw different approaches, but some common threads. I think what the key thing that stood out for me was the mutual trust and respect. And I think in moving forward and looking at how we strengthen local partnerships, we can have all the frameworks and all the documents that we want to create, but if we don't have mutual trust and respect as a starting point, then we're really on a hiding to nothing. So we are keen to open up the communication channels. I think that's a key. And again, through the 3 presentations we heard today, communication was mentioned in all of them. We are now embarking on this strengthening local partnerships. Those that are in the webinar, whatever locality you're coming from, you should know who your local employability lead contact is. And we will be endeavouring to have some local events as we move forward, potentially some roundtables, etc. Some areas, as we've heard today, and there are more that are very well organised already, and some areas are just beginning to become better organised. And it's how we can collectively take that whole journey forward. So I think the questions are interesting. There are questions that we still need to look at collectively addressing across the 32 areas. But I think for me, the key thing is communication, trust and respect, and it will take us a long way forward in this journey, and keeping the service user at the centre, because I'm sure everyone in this call is driven by improving the outcomes of those most disadvantaged.
Absolutely. Thank you. And that's what we need to focus on, isn't it? It's the people that we're dealing with and that we're doing this for. So to conclude, Kerry, we're going to have one last poll. Could you have my colleague Helen will bring up the poll. Tell us what you think we'd find most useful as a next step. And, you know, obviously Pamela's touched on some of that. Let us know what you would like, and that will help everyone involved in this agenda work out how best to take this forward. And while you're doing your voting, I'm going to say thank you very, very much to all the people that have contributed. Pamela, thank you for that national perspective, and thank you to Ruth and Laura from Renfrewshire, to John and to Jack from Dundee, and Pegs and Adam from Fife. I really appreciate that. As I say, lots of commonality, but also lots of difference, and I think that's what makes it interesting. So again, we've got a bit of a spread there. Local roundtables, hopefully we'll be able to do that in real life at some point soon, even if there's perspecs involved. And yeah, local contact details, hopefully we can help with that, and some sort of local provider event. That makes absolute sense. And we will work with colleagues to see how we can do that. I can see third sector interfaces across the land having a lot of work to do around this in the future as well. And great. So I'm see comments are still coming in. I'm getting, this is too many devices, too many things. Thank you very much to everybody, and thank you particularly to everyone for turning up and participating as a delegate in this. Really enjoyed the questions. It's a great sign when you don't get to all of them, and really enjoyed all the contributions. So thanks very much, everybody.
And thanks to the chair, Anna.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Cheers, guys.